Are you a serious dinosaur collector that wants to make better buying decisions? If so, this is the show for you. Welcome to episode 4.1 of the Dinosaur Review Show. Today, we are going to do an update on the Kronosaurus. In episode 4, we reviewed the Kronosaurus figures that were on the market. We just received the new Papo Kronosaurus. So George is going to review it to see if it can defeat the current champion, Jeff the Kronosaurus.
I'm already impressed just looking at this for the first time. This guy is so detailed. This is going to be a hard choice. You know, they've got the head sculpt right. All the teeth are interlocking the way they're supposed to. And if we look at the flippers, that is going to be our main difference between them. And it's because these flippers kind of have a frayed edge. And I kind of like that look. You know, it shows that it doesn't have picture perfect flippers. And as you know, with flippers, the flippers are kind of extensions of the hand with skin and muscle overlapping the gaps between the fingers. If we look at the underside, you can see the counter shading, which is very important for a deep sea predator. And look, my favorite thing in the world, a cloaca. It has one. Oh man, you can see the scales on this one, which I don't think you could see the scales on the previous one. You know, these were marine reptiles, so that's very important for me. And I think these are barnacles on there. That is super cool.
Barnacles or osteoderms?
Barnacles. These are definitely barnacles. If they were osteoderms, it'd have the same amount generally around the whole body. But yeah, those are barnacles for sure. The fact that they thought to put these on there is amazing. Let's go to the tail. We've got that little flipper of a tail fin. You see, it's rounded out. And it doesn't have that sort of double-sided tail. It's just the one side, which, as we talked about in the previous Kronosaurus video, some of them had a flat tail going vertically, and some of them had it going horizontally, which, when things get fossilized, it's hard to tell orientation because everything's on a 2D flattened plane. So it honestly could go either way. I personally do like the other kind of tail, the one that's horizontal versus this vertical. But it looks similar enough that I'm willing to overlook it on this one. It does have sort of like a bumpy spine, but it just looks like it's part of the vertebrae. It has like a normal tongue. And, you know, a lot of lizards or reptiles don't really have normal tongues. This looks like a human tongue. We've talked about mosasaurs having forked tongues. For the Kronosaurs, we don't have much evidence telling us what kind of tongue they have. So I'm going to reserve my opinion here. But it is kind of weird seeing it with like a human-like tongue. I gotta say, this is a really nice one.
Couple questions, George. In the prior video, you talked about the proportionality of the flippers. Are these proportional enough for you?
Oh, these are very proportionate. They're very much the same length. I would say the back ones are slightly more extended, but it's because it's in a downstroke, so it's stroking its flippers down to kind of rise up. So it makes them look longer, but if you were to contract the muscles back in, they'd be a similar length to the front flippers.
Okay, George, so I'm getting the sense that you really like this model, as do I. The one thing that I noticed on it, though, is if you set it down, it falls over.
It does. I just noticed that when I set it down as well, and that's something you typically don't think about. But it does have enough flipper support to stand up. It really depends. It's kind of like the Pentaceratops that Papo made, where you can pose it in a rearing stance or in a lower stance. So this is what I mean. It can stand this way, but it can also fall over that way. I don't think it's a detriment to it, mostly because I think that's a cool pose. But for, you know, stability purposes, it's not entirely too stable. I mean, if you knock it a little bit, it's going to fall over. But that's not to say you can't add a little support on the underside, maybe add like a rock, or a piece of coral if you have one. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, the other Kronosaur figures were definitely a lot more stable. They kind of have like the belly and splayed out flippers pose, so that offers a lot more stability than the kind of pointed flipper pose that this Kronosaurus has.
It is a more dynamic pose. I can just say that as it was sitting on my desk all week as I was waiting for George to come in and film this episode, I had to set it up probably 150 times, so it kind of got on my nerves a little bit at that point in time. Okay, George, I'm going to put you to the test. You have to make a decision. Which model are you going to go with, the PNSO one or this?
I think you guys already know. I really like the Papa one. It has a lot of features that the previous winner does not have. For example, scales. The skin of the Kronosaurus from PNSO is smoothed out, but these were marine reptiles, so seeing scales on the Papo one made me really happy. I do like the addition of a more dynamic pose, and also seeing barnacles on it gives it a sense of realism, like this large animal, you know, fell victim to these parasites that, you know, cling to modern animals that live in the ocean today. It's a very real aspect of their lives that they might have faced. So I really like that.
That's great, George, because actually the Papo model is half the price of the PNSO model. So not only are you going to get a more accurate model, apparently you're going to get some savings on it.
Half the price. I love me a good bargain.
All right, that concludes it for this short update episode. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.